The time is just 12:30 here at BBC One HQ. Coming up later, we've got Why Won't Sarah Give Me a Snapchat, our new drama starring Mary Sutherland. But first, a short documentary on Tudor injunctions. Enjoy. Two, three, go.
8 wives, 60 kings, heretics burned, the Tudor era certainly is named for itself. Today we're going to look at Elizabeth's royal injunctions of 1559, a fascinating aspect of history and a tale goes short to pass on once you find out about it. But the question is, were the injunctions injunct fun?
Elizabeth succeeded to the throne in 1553, but enforced her monarchical power slowly. This meant that religious reform was a touchy issue, and Elizabeth wasn't keen to cause too much change until she was sure of her power. But what were the injunctions? We'll find out later in the show.
Shit, that was my ride home. As we'll find out now, the royal injunctions were a set of instructions about the conduct of church services set out by the Crown. The Queen herself was supreme governor of these instructions.
The aim of these instructions was to suppression of superstition, which is really just getting rid of the great ceremony that is favoured by Catholics. An example of this was the injunctions reinstated in 1547, ruling that Eucharist should be taken at basic communion table and not at the high altar. By simplifying the Holy Communion service, religious services were reformed and became closer to Protestantism.
And go.
The injunction also addressed the need to plant true religion to the extirpation of all hypocrisy, enormities and abuses. Whatever the fuck that means. But what we do know is that traditional Catholic practices such as pilgrimages and even the use of candles were described as works devised by man's fantasies. This, in a way, was insulting to Catholics, calling their ancient traditions just a whim of man.
Churches were also required to buy a copy of the English Bible under the new injunctions, and Erasmus paraphrases, which was a set of commentaries on the Gospel in English that was pro-reform. This went directly against Catholic beliefs that God's words should be in Latin, the language of God, and it put Protestant ganger directly in church.
Okay.
Also, local officials had to adopt a Protestant view of forms of worship and practices in parish churches. This meant the new religious policies were being implemented at the basic level of Tudor society. At the governing level, William Cecil, Sexy Cecil, appointed strong Protestants to enforce the injunctions, so there was a bias from top to bottom.
So how much did the injunctions reflect Liz's personal idiosyncrasies? Well, there was a clear ruling about clerical marriage, reflecting her disapproval. For example, prospective wives of the clergy had to get a contract signed by 2 justices of the peace, detailing their suitability for the role of vicar's wife.
And go.
There are many historical interpretations of the reasoning surrounding the injunctions. Historian Sir John Neale's widely accepted claim was that the Queen fully knew that England was in a precarious state, especially due to the war with France, and so wanted to gain parliamentary confirmation of her royal supremacy without huge changes to religious practice that would have provoked the public. Elizabeth even wanted to dissolve Parliament following the Act of Supremacy.
Many modern historians now ask how Protestant was Elizabeth achieved, because whilst having many zealous Protestant supporters, Elizabeth herself was sceptical and had a conservative approach to religious matters.
1, 2, go.
The religious settlement that was put into place throughout 1559 was to try and calm the turbulent religious issue for Tudor England. Elizabeth tried to avoid being heavy on one side, and the religious settlements with her attempts at getting in mix into a government.
It was a bold move by Elizabeth, and unfortunately some of the religious extremes resisted the compromise. For example, just one Catholic bishop swore an oath to Elizabeth, and so the rest lost their positions. However, the forward-thinking policies started England down the path against religious discrimination, a path many argue today we have not fully walked down.
And go.
Join us next week when we discover, was Queen Mary actually a man?
No way, really? Oh my gosh.
No, actually, I told it. I know. Put it back there because you've got to go to the window. That's a third of them done. And we've been here since 11:20, so
Alright, 11:30.
that's 15 minutes.
You sure?
A third of them done in a quarter of the time. Good.
Yeah, I think we've got
80 plus. I've got the pen. You told me you had the pen. You lied.
Okay.
Alright, you're going to
Settle.
do...
And go.
There are many historical interpretations of the reasoning surrounding this.
Ignore that. Right. And go.
The injunction also addressed the need to plant true religion into the extirpation of all hypocrisy, enormities and abuses. Whatever the fuck that means. So, I just read the stage directions. That's actually quite funny.
One.
It's a hard one to do.
Go.
The injunction also addressed the need to plant true religion into the extirpation of all
3 and go.
The injunction also addressed the need to plant true religion into the extirpation of all hypocrisy, enormities and abuses. Whatever the fuck that means. That fucking
Go.
The injunction also addressed the need to plant true religion into the extirpation of all hypocrisy, enormities and abuses. Whatever the fuck that means.